The fire ban and ATV, UTV restrictions for the entire northern forest in Saskatchewan also remains in effect to address starting new fires during this period. Updates for actual fires, we have 25 active wildfires today, 244 so far this year. That compares to 138, which is our 5-year average. Weather continues to be problematic for us. We have not had significant rain in the areas that the fires are active. So we had a little bit in the far north on the Bravant fire, and even a small amount of rain has affected and moderated some of that fire behavior. So again, as we've said earlier, rain will be a big turning point for these fires, but until then, we're dug in doing the best we can to protect people and values in Saskatchewan. The Shoe Fire, largest fire in the province, 471,000 hectares. It has closed down Highway 912, 913, and 165. The J. Smith Fire, I just mentioned it in the far north by Missinippi. Very lower activity today, but currently mapped at 136,000 hectares. And it does impact Highway 2 North just because it is on both sides of that highway. The Ditch 2 fire by Weyakwan is currently listed at 90,000 hectares in size. It does have impacts to Highway 2 North in the Montreal Lake area towards L'Orange, and Highway 969 is closed at this time because of that fire. Pisu Fire is the fire that started west of L'Orange and of course has impacted L'Orange. Current size on that fire is estimated to be 141,000 hectares. It has impacted Highway 102 north of L'Orange and has closed Highway 910 towards Besnard. The Wolf Fire started west of Denair Beach. It is the fire that impacted the town site of Denair Beach, currently estimated at 130,000 hectares. It has impacts to Highway 106 and Highway 167 down to Denair Beach. The Pelican 2 fire, which is in the vicinity of Pelican Narrows, currently estimated to be 34,000 hectares in size. Intermittent closures on Highway 135 and some impacts to Highway 106. And the Club Fire is on the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border. It is being managed primarily by Manitoba with our assistance. They actually have the majority of the fire on the Manitoba side. Total fire size estimated to be 60,000 hectares, and about 17,000 hectares of that is on the Saskatchewan side. Busy day for that crew yesterday. The fire was impacted on the west side on the border of Creighton. Crews were extremely successful of protecting that edge of town and preventing fire from entering the town site on the western side. These fires are also causing intermittent impacts to communications, power in certain areas, and we are working with our partners at SaskTel and SaskPower to restore those as soon as it's safe to do so. We have currently confirmed 267 values have been lost to these fires, but we are also assessing others at this time and believe the number to be closer to 400 values that will have been impacted so far. Over 30 communities have evacuations, either full or partial evacuations, asking people to leave their homes. And currently there is between 10 and 15,000 evacuees currently out of their northern locations due to these wildfires and other issues in the area, such as access or loss of communication and power. Just before we go to questions, I will repeat the number. If people in Saskatchewan are looking for information on the wildfires, on the evacuations resulting from the wildfires, you can call our toll-free number 1-855-559-5502. You can go to our our public website to get information on the fires as well. And if you need any information for travel purposes, please go to the highway hotline. It is updated as soon as we know of a change due to wildfire. We are in conversation with highways and they will immediately change that on the site. So it is basically a running current inventory of any closures or any restrictions that are in place. That being said, if you do not need to travel in these areas, it is recommended that you do not, because of the fire activity, because of the needs to use these access for emergency support and transport and supply. If you do not need to go into these areas or into these restricted highways, please refrain from doing so. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Before we go into questions, we ask that you use the raise hand function. And when you are called upon, please identify yourself and the outlet you are from. I'll repeat again that we are asking you to please keep your question to one question. This is to allow time for all outlets, and we will be reinforcing this today. I understand that's difficult, but we're trying to be mindful of the number of media outlets on the call. Please press *5 to raise your hand, *6 to mute and unmute yourself. And with that, we'll go to our first question. I have Chris, again, Vander something, and then it cuts off, sorry.
It's Chris Van Den Breekel. I'm with Global News in Saskatoon. Steve, I've been having conversations with a lot of folks from the north, especially from the Larange area, and the suddenness of the way the situation changed there. And a lot of people upset, saying that there's opportunities for more advanced defensive measures, fire breaks days in advance, maybe even a week in advance before a fire gets close enough to threaten a community. Can you speak to the reason why there may not be as many defensive measures put in place in advance when a fire is in the area, as opposed to somewhere like Candle Lake, where it has been quite in advance and we're still seeing the fire quite a ways away from that community?
Okay, as you mentioned, it is a timing issue. The example used is Larange. Larange actually has fire breaks. They were established in 2015 during the fires then. They were immediately reopened during the fires of the area. However, and that has limited some of the incursion, but because of the activity and the behavior of these fires being so hot and spotting so far ahead, a simple fire break is insufficient to prevent fire spotting half a kilometer in front of the fire. They're primarily designed to do two things: stop ground fire from coming into the community and allowing a point of engagement for our agency and others to address the fire that's coming into the town. That being said, if the fire is very volatile, moving very fast, pushed by high winds, that will not be just sufficient to stop some of those, again, fires that are starting as a result of the wind driving fire and flame and fire embers into the community.
Thanks, Steve. Next, we'll go to Jason Kerr from PA Daily Herald.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for taking our questions. Just want to talk to you quick about the weather front. You mentioned even a little bit of rain has helped. Ideally, what would you guys need weather-wise to make a big dent in these fires?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily the amount, it's the consistency. So a little bit of weather over a longer period of time will help the issue. A much larger amount over a shorter period of time. But what isn't helping is even a short event, 3 to 5 millimeters, followed by the heat coming in behind it, is really just giving us a short-term reprieve. It's not actually changing the amount of work we have to do. It's basically giving us a little bit of fire behavior break, so that we can put some measures in place, but they're not long-term and lasting. So even the difference between a 40-kilometer wind and a 20 drastically changed some of the behavior we saw from 2 days ago to yesterday. So the amount of spread, the amount of extension. So instead of seeing the fire move 3 to 8 kilometers, yesterday we were seeing a fire move maybe a kilometer and a half. So again, you have more time to put in brakes and do suppression efforts when your fires are a little more moderate. That being said, we have a lot of fires in a lot of the area. So as I mentioned, some fires may be getting a little bit of a break, but that doesn't mean it's widespread and that all fires are getting that same reprieve.
Thanks, Steve. Next, we'll go to Nicole Healy.
Thank you, Nicole Healy, Global News here. I'm wondering, Steve, if, what you have to say to people that are saying they still aren't getting supports that they need when they've evacuated.
So we continue to address that issue. I mean, we have the number. We realize that people seeking support are trying to be directed to where they need to be. That is not necessarily where they are now. So someone may, who is self-evacuated, come to Prince Albert and ask for supports. However, the rest of their community may be in North Battleford, and their supports and their rooms that were held and reserved for them are actually in North Battleford. So they may not get supports immediately. You know, we're trying to hook them up with their family. We are trying to get them short-term supports if we have to, but a lot of that is unpredictable. Somebody that we did not know was self-evacuated in Prince Albert will show up at a Prince Albert reception center. And then we have to kind of go through it and figure out where they are, where their supports, so that we can make sure that, you know, we're addressing all of those folks. So some of it's easy to plan for, and a lot of it is not. So if we consider the sheer number that's evacuated, the majority of these people are getting supports. They've got places to sleep. They've got food supplies, emergency supplies, medical health support. But there will be a smaller number that will continue to have to be addressed within the bigger system as time goes by. So continue to work with us at the Public Safety Agency. So we use the 1-800 because we are the central. So if you've gone to a third-party provider, or maybe you went to a specific location and didn't get the answer, please use the 1-855 number, and we will try to make those linkages as the agency responsible for trying to organize all of the different parties who are trying to help.
Thanks, Steve. I'm going to go over to the chat. There's Neil Billinger at CJWW in Saskatoon. He asks, how many municipal fire departments across the province have deployed units and equipment to fight wildfires in northern areas? Thanks.
I currently do not have the number, but I can say that it has been a phenomenal turnout. As you know, many of these fires have impacted communities. And as you saw, even in La Ronge, 5 separate fire departments stepped forward and were redirected to support the La Ronge Fire Department as that fire came into town. There are multiple units that have been to the club fire around Denair Beach. There's fire units on the Wyakwin fire, the ditch fire. There have been units addressed through the Shoe fire and even the Pelican fire. So we thank them for their support. We've made it known through the Saskatchewan Volunteer Firefighters and Fire Chiefs Association that we are looking, and many have stepped forward. In some cases, it's a little problematic because there's lots of fire bans on, and municipalities are a little concerned about their own backyard. And again, if there was some better weather, they likely would step forward. But again, they have to manage, you know, the fires in their own area as well. But I can't say enough about the amount of support that we have received this year exceeds any support we've received in prior years.
Thanks, Steve. Next, we'll go to Jillian.
Hi, Steve. We're approaching fire season with a huge amount of evacuees. That's potentially going to be record-setting for the province. What sort of pressure does that put on your crews and staff?
Well, the fire situation is the same. That's where the pressure is coming. I mean, we move people out of the way for their own safety, but it's going to be coming down to, can we secure some of the fires, some portions of the fire, especially because we may have some opportunity to maybe, for instance, deal with 1 or 2 communities that are now secure, and look at some repatriation options for some of those. So that is part of our planning mechanism. You know, as these fires evolve and as we make progress on them, to also look at getting people back home as soon as we can. So I mentioned the fire up by Brave Ant Lake. We will do assessments, and if we believe the fire is no longer a direct threat to that community, we may be able to tell them that they can return, other than maybe their health compromised P1s and 2s who may still experience smoke, but the direct threat could go down, and then they may be able to return home. So we are looking at all those opportunities to take some of the pressure on the system off for the evacuee side as we continue to add resources to actually manage the fires and put them to bed, knowing that, as you mentioned, lightning season is coming. We've already started to see some lightning. But again, to manage the workload, the sooner some of these fires are cleaned up and ramped down, we will be able to redeploy resources to others. And of course, if we end up with new fires due to lightning, we will have to address those as they occur.
Thanks. Next, we'll go to Colleen Silverthorne. Colleen, I can see your mic is on, but I can't hear you. Still not hearing you, Colleen. So if you want to put that into the chat, I'll move on to the next, and then we'll go back over to the chat.
Sure. Can you hear now? Can you hear now?
Yeah.
You can. Okay, perfect. So I just was wondering if you could talk to me a little bit about how much you are relying on the Red Cross for evacuation supports, and where those centers are located, and if one of them is at the Real District in Regina.
Okay, so just for clarity, there's a number of communities that are relying on the Public Safety Agency directly. But as you mentioned, there's a number of communities that through partnership agreements are using the Red Cross as their support mechanism. And primarily Peter Valentine Cree Nation is one. So if we think of Pelican Narrows and some of those communities, they are being supported by the Canadian Red Cross on behalf of the Tribal Council. However, we do not manage those, so I do not have exact locations and numbers for what is happening at the Red Cross. We get estimates from them as things involve, but we are not directly responsible for the head count or what facilities they may be using or moving to.
Thanks. We'll go to Jeremy Symes.
Hi, Steve. Jeremy here with the Canadian Press. Just wanting to ask you about getting help from the federal government in any way possible here. I know you're talking about resources being stretched, but that federal firefighters have limited abilities and we don't need to airlift people out. But we've heard from Buckley Belanger in the House of Commons saying, you know, if Saskatchewan reaches out, the help will be there, the assistance will be offered. So I'm just wondering why the SPCA is just not asking for any federal help, just to get it wherever they can, even if it's not in fire suppression abilities.
Well, we are looking at, again, having a discussion with our federal partners on the assistance side, the evacuation side, if there might be some support either to the Canadian Red Cross or ourselves for some of this evacuation issue. And I believe that Manitoba is having similar questions. From the firefighting front, currently we are getting good response from our wildfire partners to supply us qualified, certified firefighters to do a line and the aircraft that were needed. So we will continue to do that without occupying and taking up the federal resources if we can get them through another mechanism first. That is our preferred order. But as I did mention earlier, there are other areas where we might be able to get federal assistance, maybe more on the humanitarian side. And again, I am unaware if potentially the RCMP in their efforts are asking for augmented support through their federal counterparts as well.
Thanks, Steve. Pierre Olivier.
Hi, Steve. Do you know how many hectares have burned so far this season because of the wildfires?
No, many of these fires, because of the smoky conditions and some of the remote pieces and trying to get into some of them, we have estimates on some of these fires. We do not have accurate boundaries, so of course we do not have an accurate hectare count to date. I believe that based on the estimates right now, we're looking at over 900,000 hectares in the province so far this year.
And next we will go to Tina.
Hi, I just wanted to talk a little bit about La Ronge. I spoke with the mayor there yesterday, and he was saying that he's worried about the fire burning on the highway corridor. I think that's the Ditch 2 fire moving south, and the community having to worry about that in the next couple of days. And then as we're sitting here, we also got an emergency alert for some subdivisions around La Ronge, Napatak, I think, and Potato Lake. So can you talk about the situation there? Obviously, some milder or some calmer conditions that appeared to be yesterday, but obviously that area is not out of the woods at all, hey?
Yeah, I mean, it's relative. Calmer conditions mean that the fires, may have been moving 2-3 kilometers throughout the day, which is significant, but it's far less than the 5-6 kilometers that they were moving the day before. And as we know, once we've managed to deal with today's issues where there's active fire, then that moves us to another priority where there's more active fire. So the communities you mentioned with evacuations were already covered by the original evacuation alert because it was for La Ronge and all areas within 20 kilometers of the town of La Ronge, which did include Napatak, Potato Lake, and some of those other communities. So they were aware. This is not new. They knew that there was a potential for evacuation, and some of that can be by smoke, by access. The good news is that we have been able for the last 3-4 days successfully manage the access down the Highway 2 corridor and have had no significant disruptions. So it is an issue, but currently we are managing that to ensure that there is not an access issue should an evacuation be escalated.
Thanks, Steve. Next we'll go to Jasmine Peltier.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, sometimes I'm not sure if it works. Specifically over the last few days, what have the biggest challenges been in terms of communicating with the many, many fire crews that are currently working in the province fighting wildfires?
Well, in addition to, again, just having multiple fires on the landscape, we're also having to deal with and doing workarounds because we're losing, in some cases, communication. Cell towers damaged in Danair Beach. We had to reactivate that and get some SaskTel people in. We have a communication system for emergency communication, and we had to, again, as power went out in the community, we had to bring up backup batteries to ensure that the emergency responders can still access that. So in addition to the regular stuff, we also have to deal with infrastructure impacts and damages that could occur that will impact our ability to manage, resource, and make decisions on fires that are occurring. So another little complicating factor that's beyond the fire scope, but directly having an impact on our ability to do our work.
Thanks, Steve. We'll go to Sherlock.
Hi, I'm Shro from CBC. Looking at the fire season right now, how are you preparing better for the summer season or the fires that might come in the summer season?
Well, we already have, in addition to the crews and the extra support we're bringing in on these large fires, we have a robust system for attacking. We call it initial attack for addressing brand new fire starts. That is key to our program. And even though we've been very busy, that piece remains a cornerstone of what we do. So there are helicopters and crews that sole job is not to fight these big fires. Their job is to stop the next one. So a couple of days ago and over the last couple of days, we've had single lightning strike fires, especially on the west side. We have successfully been able to keep those small and contained and not create further problems. So that is part of our strategy to ensure that we can manage the workload, is to make sure we do not miss those new fire starts and let them become big problematic fires.
Thanks. And next we'll go to Larissa.
Hi, thanks. Larissa from Later Post. We're hearing from some of the updates from various First Nations and communities that the air resources are really quite tight, given that there's so many, like you mentioned, hectares burning right now. So I'm wondering if you can just explain or give us some detail on how many air tankers and helicopters are in the air right now, how many of them are from Saskatchewan's fleet, how many are coming from other partners or other contractors that are offering their help.
So we have a fleet of aircraft already in the province, and most of those tankers, both scooping and retardant tankers, are operational and continually moving around. Part of the issue comes in is that we mobilize those and move them on a regular basis. So a good example is we removed all of our air tankers from La Ronge 2 days ago. Not because they weren't needed, but because we don't want them locked in because of smoke and unusable. So they are responding to La Ronge fire, as an example, from Buffalo Narrows or Meadow Lake or Prince Albert. They're still available, still in our action plan and our fleet. They're just not in the location. So when people look at the airport or hear that there's no air tankers at their local airport, it's not because they're not available to them. It's just because we have to manage their viability, their response times. And that's for our fleet, but we also apply it to our fleet that we bring in. So we have also brought in 2 heavy retardant tankers, Q400s, exactly like the ones that Saskatchewan is buying in our future procurement plan. They both came from Alaska. We also have brought in 2 water bombing aircraft, CL-415s from Quebec, which are very similar to the ones we currently operate. And we have also brought a 5-plane group of smaller scooping aircraft called 802s. They work in a group of 5, and they have come from British Columbia to help us. The other part of that question you asked is about helicopters. We have a number of helicopters that we hire on for the whole season, but we also, as things escalate, we bring on a lot more helicopters. So we have a large number. They are assigned to fires or responses, and they consistently move around. And because of the situation in the Ronge and the potential for smoke, we brought in a very large helicopter from Alberta on loan that can work in smoky conditions where our air tankers can't. And it can actually has a huge belly tank that can deliver gel solution to protect structures, protect around communities. So we specifically brought that in to deal with some of our unique challenges with these large fires tied into communities.
Thanks, Steve. And well, it's 2 o'clock, so we'll take our last question here from Chris at Global.
Hey, Steve, this one's a short one. Have there been any recorded injuries either on the firefighter side or on the evacuee side?
No, and I guess that's the key message here is we've always said that this agency's #1 priority is protecting people and keeping them safe, and that includes our firefighters on the line. So at this time, we have no significant injuries or fatalities related to any of our fire activity. As you can imagine, there's probably a number of twisted ankles and splinters and dust in the eye incidents, but nothing significant. Considering the volume of activity on these fires and the volatility, we have taken the cautionary side. So both on the Shoe Fire and in Denair Beach on the Wolf Fire, if the situation becomes too drastic, too dangerous, we will remove people before there's an injury or an incident. So we have had to evacuate people. When things calm down, we put them back to work, put them back into the fire situation. But again, no undue risk for the protection of our firefighters, our contractors, and the people that are going to be in front of this fire. Leads to just the final note is, if you've been asked to evacuate for reasons that there's a fire close, please heed that advice. We have a number of people that it happens that we are going to evacuate, and we've advised them to evacuate, and they have refused. And then our issue comes in is, will we have to do an emergency rescue? But if the firefighting community says it's too risky to be on site, then you should probably heed that advice and think about leaving when they ask you to leave your premise, because the risk is too high to stay.
Thanks, Steve, and appreciate that safety message at the end there. So that's the end of our questions that we have for today. If you have any further questions, please send them to media.spsa@gov.sk.ca. Thank you, everyone, and have a safe rest of your day.